Hey, howdy, hey, and welcome back to another episode of the Father's Reflection. So, continuing with the Fathers of the Bible series, up next, under reflection, is probably one of the most mentioned men in the Bible, other than Jesus and God Himself. We're talking about the most prominent prophet in the Bible, and that's going to be none other than Moses. And, guys, I'm fair warning you right now, this episode is going to be longer than any of the ones I've put out so far, and maybe more than any of the ones I put out in the future. Just because there is so much context into Moses that even right now within this episode, I can't cover everything. There's no way I could cover everything in one episode. Just be mindful, Moses didn't just raise a family. He led an entire nation. And on top of that, that said nation, a lot of the times, acted worse than a toddler who missed their nap. So I'm going to do my best to give you the most raw, real version of Moses here. I'm not going to give you a statue version. I'm not going to give you the pretty stained glass version. And I'm not going to give you the corny movie version of Moses. I want to give you guys the real, honest, raw Moses. The tired Moses, the reluctant Moses, the stretched thin, emotionally drained, and standing in the gap Moses. Because Moses wasn't just a prophet, he was something every father at some point understands. He was a man caught in the middle. He was caught between heaven and earth, holiness and immaturity. He was caught between God's standard and the world and people's emotions. And before he ever stood between God and Israel, someone stood between death and him. So let's dive in, and this is going to be a long one. I've already warned you guys. Let's start off with Exodus 1:22. And Pharaoh charged all his people, saying, every son that is born ye shall cast into the river. So backstory back to this past lesson that we did with Joseph. Joseph was in Egypt. He was in great power of Egypt. He stayed there. Okay? The Israelites stayed in Egypt. And after many years, their population really started booming. All right, to the point where they were starting to override the Egyptians in population. Now, under the Pharaoh that was in charge with Joseph in line, he didn't step on any toes. He didn't care. He's like, listen, I know you're God. I'm not stepping on those toes. Y'all do you. You're welcome here. I'm not stepping on that toes. I know what's going to happen. I don't want that can of worms. But after so many years, another Pharaoh comes in, and he knows not of Joseph. He knows not of the promised people of God. He does not know the promised bloodline that is within his ruling. So he was afraid of the population that they might overthrow him. I know hopefully, maybe all of y'all have seen the movie Bug's Life. Okay, the grasshoppers have dominion over the ants. And the grasshopper's biggest fear was the population of the ants overthrowing him. Because as soon as they find out that they have the numbers and they can overthrow him, there goes his reign. Sounds like modern day society now, doesn't it? But we're not going to have that discussion today. Oh, that's another topic for another day. But imagine that decree, sending his soldiers out into the town. Every son shall be cast into the river. And the river he's talking about is the Nile. I'm pretty sure we all know the prehistoric creature that lives within the Nile. So getting cast into the river, either you're drowning or you're getting eaten. Either way, it's a death sentence. So you have soldiers all throughout the city listening to these babies cry, checking them to make sure they are a girl. If they're a girl, they didn't care. Because you know what girls are going to do? They're going to mingle with the population of the Egyptians. If they cut off the bloodline of the men, the boys, they have to go with the Egyptians. So the Egyptian bloodline now multiplies. And the children of Israel, the Hebrews, their bloodline is cut off. That's not what God promised. And this is where the Pharaoh really messes up, because he did not know of the promised bloodline. And this is exactly the world that Moses was born into. Exodus 2:2. And a woman conceived and bare a son, and she hid him for 3 months. 3 months of hiding a baby boy, hiding a baby in general. I don't know how many of you all have littles or remember when you have littles. They are not quiet little creatures when they are that young. We talk about overreacting on a minor inconvenience. Yeah, it's them. They are the epitome of overreact. They just ate 5 minutes ago. I'm hungry again. Just got done eating. Well, my diaper's full, so I cleared up some room, and I'm deciding that I'm extremely hungry now. So I'm going to scream the song of my people, and you will acknowledge me. That's what this time frame is. And Hebrews 11:23 explains why. By faith, Moses was hid 3 months of his parents, and they were not afraid of the king's commandment. So they weren't afraid because they were still living the promise that God had already ordained of the bloodline surviving, of the chosen people surviving. They were living through the faith, not through the absence of danger. The danger was still there, but in the presence of courage and faithfulness in God's promise. So before Moses ever saved a nation, his father saved him through the courage and faithfulness of God's promise. Exodus 2:3, she took for him an ark. Pay attention. Pay attention. She took for him an ark and put the child therein, and she laid it in the flags by the river's brink. The word ark, it's appearing again. The word ark is the same word used for Noah. An ark is described as a vessel of rescue, a vessel of hope. Blow your mind here. A vessel of promise. Are y'all following me on this? A vessel of promise. Because when Noah built the ark, that was the promise that Noah and his family would survive because of Noah's faithfulness, because Noah stood alone in the world of evil. And so now we have Moses being put in the ark in the midst of the world of evil, of a Pharaoh who's trying to destroy the promise that God had given generations ago. So now we see tiny, fragile Moses floating down the river, the very river meant to kill him. This was supposed to be his destiny. As a male baby in Egypt, this was supposed to be his destiny. This was supposed to be his final moment, was in the river to die. Fathers, can you imagine watching that basket drift away? Me as a father, I couldn't imagine. I couldn't imagine sending one of my girls up a river of uncertainty. They did this on the foundation of a promise, because there comes a time when you can't control everything anymore. You have to put the faith and trust in God. You pray, you release, you trust God with what you love the most. I know there's going to come a time in my life where I have to let go, that my daughters will leave. But I trust God with what I love the most to take care of them, to protect them, and that I did my due diligence in raising them, that they might trust and have that same relationship with God that I taught them. That is the relationship that we need. Let's carry on with Moses. Exodus 2:10, and the child grew, and she brought him unto Pharaoh's daughter, and he became her son. So he became Pharaoh's daughter's son. He is now grandson to Pharaoh, and he was raised in Pharaoh's palace. Acts 7:22. Pay attention to this. And Moses was learned in all the wisdom of the Egyptians, and was mighty in words and in deeds. Was mighty in words and in deeds. Remember this, okay? So he was educated, he was trained, he was powerful. He was raised in the mindset of the Egyptians. He was raised in the habits of the Egyptians. He was raised in the verbiage and the language of the Egyptians. He was raised with the attitude of the Egyptians, especially under the new Pharaoh's rule that did not understand the promise of God, who was willfully destroying and eagerly destroying the promise that God made, the covenant that God made. So he was being raised into that. And so this is where we see a tension build up inside Moses. He had inside him lived a tension. He was Hebrew by birth, and his mother knew this. Mind you, she even proclaimed, "This is a son of the Hebrews." And I don't know if it was divine intervention that she didn't care, but she took him, she raised him. Maybe she didn't know that this man would be the absolute downfall of Egypt. Maybe she didn't know the plagues that were about to come. She didn't know that they were about to lose everybody of Hebrew blood, but he was Hebrew by birth, Egyptian by upbringing. And some fathers, you feel this tension. If you don't, you're not living the relationship with God that you should be. But let's go back. You were raised one way. You were born into a certain mindset. You were born into a different society, but now you're being called to another. Some of you were born into absolute ruin, devastation, abuse. But then you grew up and you separated from it. And now you're being called to a better, peaceful life. But you still have that tension because this is what you know. This is what you're being called to. Do you understand that? You have what you know and what you don't know. And when I said, if you don't feel this tension, you're not having the right relationship with God. You're living in one world and while feeling pulled towards another. I don't know if anyone's noticed the world that we're living in right now, but it's horrible. It's terrible. It's blasphemic. It's disgusting. It's cruel. And it's made of habits that block us from the promise, distractions that block us from the promise. But in our hearts, we constantly feel the pulling towards God. It's easier to stay in the world that we know, even if it's not good for us, than go towards what's promised to us, go towards our calling. I'm a big advocate for that. I've had a calling to make this podcast. I don't want to do it. I'm not good at, this whole podcast thing. And I don't study enough. I don't know how to make a lesson for people. Like, I know I want to do something in fatherhood and help at least one father through a struggling time. I don't want to do it right now. Like, maybe later, another day. It was comfortable staying where I was at. But finally, starting this, my calling, anything and everything has come up to stop me from doing this, to not do this, to fall into the temptation of, you don't want to record today. You don't want to do this today. Here, why don't you sit on the couch? We're going to put on a good movie. We got a new recommendation list for a movie you need to watch. It's so easy to fall back in than to lead for your calling. Anyway, back on track here. I told you guys this is going to be a long episode, and some of it might just be me ranting. But Hebrews 11:24 and 25. By faith, Moses refused to be called the son of Pharaoh's daughter, choosing rather to suffer the affliction with the people of God. So at some point, it was laid on his heart that he was not Egyptian. He was, in fact, Hebrew. And that pained him. And so he's like, you know what? I'm giving it up. I'm giving up my power. I'm giving up my authority. I don't want to live in the palace anymore. I want to live amongst my people. So he refused his titles. He chose suffering over status. And fathers, this is a real thing that you will probably have to come up against in your life. Are you going to choose the comfort of what you know versus your calling? That is the decision here. Are you going to join the world in what they do and sin against God? Or are you going to follow your calling and lead your family with God, to God, for God? Is it going to be comfortable? No. Not at all. But it's worth it. Exodus 2:12. And he slew the Egyptian and hid him in the sand. Oh boy, okay. Moses tried to deliver Israel his own way. his Egyptian way. Even though he left the status that he was in, he was still very much Egyptian. Okay, he was not raised Hebrew, he was not raised Israelite. He's got the promised blood in him, the covenant blood in him, but he was not raised that way. He was raised Egyptian. He had the mindset of an Egyptian. He had the habits of the Egyptians. He had the attitude of an Egyptian. And we see that when he slew the Egyptian and he hit him in the sand. He used his own power. He used his own force. He used his own anger, and he thought impulsively, because that's exactly what the Egyptians would have done. That's how he was raised. So naturally, he went back to his own instincts of what he should do his own way for Israel. But here's the thing. The next day, Exodus 2:14, he was confronted. Who made thee prince and a judge over us? People of Israel are like, who are you? Not even a week ago, you were beating us with a whip. You were watching the soldiers beat us with whips. You've watched them kill us since you were born. What makes you think we want to have you as a leader? Who made you prince over us? Who asked you to fight for us? Nobody. Get back down in the trenches, dude. You were at upper rank, and now you're at lower rank. But guess what? Even us lower rank are now overrank you. Go back to the bottom where you belong. You are now a pump amongst us. And so this question broke him. Who made you leader? And every father is going to feel this question eventually. Whether it's at home, at work, who says you know what you're doing? Who says you're capable? Who says you're even enough? That often is the question we ask ourselves. Who says you're enough? When we're at our lowest, am I enough? Am I doing enough? Am I enough? So after all of this, Moses becomes a wanted man throughout Egypt. Pharaoh's out for his head, and he runs to the wilderness. All right, he runs to the wilderness. He meets a man. He starts tending this man's sheep. He marries his daughter, has children. He starts a family. And Exodus 2:21, and Moses was content to dwell with that man. So, he was content. This is probably one of the most poisonous words you can do if you ever are trying to build or progress at something. Becoming content where you are. So, the once palace-trained prince is now walking amongst sheep, herding sheep. Here's the key, though. He's becoming a shepherd, not as punishment, but as preparation. See where I'm getting this? God will often take a man into obscurity before bringing him into purpose. So God has already laid out this plan for Moses. Moses doesn't know this yet. He doesn't know God's plan. But before the thought even comes into Moses' head, before he can even present Moses with his calling, he's got to do some work to him. Because Moses is still very Egyptian. So to break down that hard shell of the Egyptian, he has to take him into obscurity. Because the lesson behind this, you can't shepherd people. You can't shepherd your family. You can't shepherd your children until you've learned patience with sheep. That was Moses' lesson. You don't have the patience to properly lead yet. And you just showed that by killing that Egyptian. All right? You don't have the patience yet. So you cannot fulfill this calling yet. So now what I'm going to do, I'm going to make you a shepherd. And if we had to do a resume for everyone who God has called, and the analogy that God uses that as a good shepherd, it pops up almost every single stinking time. So we're jumping to Exodus 3:2. And the angel of the Lord appeared unto him in a flame of fire out the midst of a bush. Fire, but not burning bush. Yeah, that would have been weird. And all honesty, guys, I've mentioned this before. I think it would have been really cool to get my spiritual spanking from a burning bush rather than a tomato. Like I could have settled for a burning bush rather than a tomato. Lord, like you work in mysterious ways, but tomatoes, really? I have a bush right out my front door. You could have used that. Anyway, but the bush is not burning. And then God speaks, Moses, Moses. And Moses replies, here am I. So at this point, God is playing a game of Marco Polo with Moses. God's going Marco, Moses is going Polo. But notice, Moses knew God's voice. He understood God's voice, but he did not act as a servant. There's still a little Egyptian there. Because when God calls upon you, you need to act as that servant. What will you have me do, Lord? Here am I, send me. Moses did not respond like that. And this is where all the excuses for Moses' calling start coming up. Exodus 3:11. Who am I? Who am I? I am a Hebrew who was raised Egyptian and is now cast out of Egypt because I killed a man. My Egyptian family doesn't want me. My blood-born Hebrew family doesn't want me. I'm a man of the wilderness in a very content spot, Lord. So who am I? Exodus 4:10. I am not eloquent. So he's lost his eloquent speech. He's lost the power speech that he had as an Egyptian. So that's something that's changed since his days in Egypt. He's no longer eloquent. He no longer has power and authority and great speaking skills from Egypt. Exodus 4:13. Send by the hand of him who thou wilt send. I'm going to translate this a little bit just because it's hard to understand. Send somebody else, anybody else, everybody else. Just don't send me. Hell, send the donkey. Sorry, wrong story. And God answers every excuse with one promise. Exodus 3:12. Certainly I will be with thee. And fathers, this is the foundation of fatherhood that we need. Let go of the confidence in yourself. Let go of your ego. Let go of what you know and what you're comfortable with. Foundation should not be built on the confidence of yourself, but the confidence of who is with you. If you are walking with God, have confidence in God. But also be mindful of who you have in your circle. Be mindful of who you choose as a spouse. Be mindful of who you have children with. For those of you who are watching that are not with somebody yet, or maybe you are with somebody, but you don't have children yet, be mindful of who you raise children with. If they're not living for God, you need to change something before you bring children into this world. I'm not saying it can't be done, but it makes it a little bit easier if you guys are evenly yoked. The word says to be evenly yoked. If you're not evenly yoked, you better get there. All right, let's jump to Numbers 12:3. Now, the man Moses was very weak. So, meek meaning strength under control. So, at this point now, we see another change in Moses from the day he left Egypt to now. He's learned meekness. He has his strength under control. He has his impulsiveness under control. He's learned patience through being a shepherd. He's learned resilience under being a shepherd. He's learned patience under being a shepherd. So he's learned meekness now. His strength is under control. His mind is under control. And we'll go to Exodus 33:11. And the Lord spake unto Moses face to face, as a man speaketh unto his friend. Moses, this is why he endured. He knew God personally. Fathers, this is something that you need to do. This is your responsibility. I am charging you with this. Since Jesus died on that cross, we now have access to have that relationship with God through Jesus Christ. Before that, we would have had no hope. So I charge you, fathers, you can't represent God to your family if you don't walk with him yourself. You can't show your children who God is if only you do is talk about him. That's just exposure to knowledge, not upbringing or training who God is. So you can't represent God to your family if you do not walk with him yourself. You do not have that personal relationship with yourself. If you do not seek him yourself. So Moses finally gets over all of his excuses. a speech issue. God handles. He's like, you know what? You still got a brother over there. Just meet up with him, and you're both going to get the ball rolling on this. So Moses went back to Egypt and went before Pharaoh. He had to stand in front of Pharaoh. And just imagine this: a man of the wilderness, walking up the same stone pillars that he was raised in, same golden walls he was raised in, maybe even some of the same guards that he was raised around. But he's coming back as a shepherd, a lowly shepherd. 5:1. Thus saith the Lord God of Israel, let my people go. The famous line, let my people go. What was Pharaoh's answer? Who is the Lord that I should obey his voice? Who is this God you're talking about? No. I don't know your God. Why should I listen to him? Here in Egypt, we have our own gods. Why should I listen to yours? He's not my God. And so this is where we really see the battle that was honestly going inside of Moses now manifested into two people. We see the Egyptian Pharaoh and the Egyptian lifestyle going against Moses and God's promise. We see that clash that Moses had inside of him. So here's where you see the real battle: truth versus pride, right versus wrong. Fathers, this is what we're going to face too. Because sometimes in leadership means standing in front of something powerful and refusing to bow. The world is going to come to you as a father to get to your children. This is a strategy Satan has used since day stinking one. If he can't get to the head, if he can't get to the union, he's going to the children. And a lot of times he will skip over the union because the union's not a threat. He'll go straight to the children because the children are a threat. Faith of a child is a threat. The pureness of a child is a threat. So this is Satan's tactic all throughout history and in today's time as well. But us as fathers are charged to stand in front, in between this wickedness and refusing to bow to it. So Moses does. And since Pharaoh didn't want to listen, guess what? The plagues begin. Let's go. All right. Water turns to blood. Frogs cover the land. There was locusts. There was pestilence. There were boils. I don't know if anyone's had a boil before, but they are not pleasant. Think of them as big zits just everywhere. Very painful. Each time, Pharaoh just hardens his heart. Exodus 9:34. He sinned yet more and hardened his heart. This is what pride does. This is now the battle of pride. And it doesn't soften under pressure. It calcifies. Creates a callus. For those of you who work heavy with your hands, I know you have thick calluses on your hands, building that pressure, building that extra layer of protection to conceal it. Moses had to keep going. He kept having to go back, keep confronting, keep speaking truth, keep demanding, let my people go. Thus saith the Lord Almighty. And he kept having to do it with repetition, consistency, even when nothing changed. Another father lesson here. Obedience is not measured by results. It is measured by faithfulness. Some of you have received a calling, but you haven't yet fulfilled said calling. You're still within the building stages of it. You're still within the consistency stage of it, the perseverance stage of it. Moses feels you. He had to do it too. Let my people go every day, confronting Pharaoh. Even when nothing changed, he still listened to God. He was still faithful to the promise. So obedience is not measured by results. You don't have to see the results. It's measured by faithfulness, because as long as you stay faithful, the result will be there, even if you can't see it. Fast forward to the final plague. Final plague is death, passing over Egypt. But now God gives the Israelites instructions. Exodus 12:3. When I see the blood, I will pass over you. Now imagine at this time, Moses having to explain to every Israelite there, hey, yo, take a lamb, kill it, put the blood on the doorpost. You can only imagine there was questions because this has never been done before. There's no need to. Why blood? Why lamb? Why tonight? And Moses drops the biggest said so of all time because God said so. Now, it used to bug me as a child when my parents would say, because I said so. It would bug me to no end, but now me as a father, I use the same freaking line. Put your pants back on. Why? Because I said so. I used the very line that I hated as a child. But this was a lesson for me because a lot of the times obedience comes before understanding. I didn't need to know a why at the time. My dad telling me, go out, move the bricks to another pallet. Why? Because I said so. I didn't need to know the reasoning why. I just needed to listen. That's all I needed to do. I needed to listen and be obedient and do it. Come to find out, the reason why was because the pallet underneath the bricks was rotting. And through the season, we're going to get more rain and rain and rain. And then later on, now we're going to have to dig the bricks out of the dirt, which is a pain in the ass. Mind my French. But it's a pain. It's going to cause more work. So why not just do it now? Get it over with, move it to a different pallet, the one that's not rotting. And it's out of the dirt. It's clean. It's organized. It's not toppling over, and we're not picking up broken pieces and other pieces in the dirt, getting our hands dirty, and just getting it done. And I understand this now. I didn't need to know an explanation behind what my parents were saying. And so the Israelites are learning this lesson. Obedience comes before understanding. They didn't understand why, just because they didn't need to. Because God said so. Listen, death passing over tonight. Blood over your door. I don't even think he said death was passing over tonight. He just said, God said, put blood on your doorpost. Why? Because God said so? How about that? Is that a good enough answer for you? So that night, Egypt begins to wail. In Exodus 12:30, there was a great cry in Egypt, for there was not a house where there was not one dead. So out of each house, one person was slain that did not have the blood covering their home. And so suddenly after this, Pharaoh calls for Moses and he just gives him one simple command: go. No explanation, no other belittling words. He just says, go. Get out. Leave me alone. I'm done with you. You've tormented me enough with these plagues. Now you crossed the line. Just get out. I don't care anymore. Just go. And just like that, the Israelites' years of oppression ended in one night. But, getting ahead of myself, sorry. Israel leaves Egypt and they are now free. But this is also something you need to be mindful of. Freedom is unfamiliar when you've lived a life of bondage. Having peace is unfamiliar when your life has been chaos. Experiencing love is unfamiliar when you've lived a life of abuse. So when something unfamiliar is now your lifestyle, when the pressure comes, the natural reaction is panic. And this is exactly how the Israelites respond after leaving Egypt. So once they leave, they're gone. Pharaoh's in his chambers, and he's like, you know what? Screw this. If I can't have them as slaves and I can't have them as workers, then I'm just going to kill them. They just did all of this to my kingdom, to my family, to my people, and I just let them walk? Nah, they dead. Let's go. Rally up the troops. We're going after them. Where are they going to go? They're in the wilderness. There's not much places to go. What are they going to do? Hide under the sand? And so Pharaoh gathers his army and they go after the Israelites. They go after the Hebrews. In Exodus 14:10 shows the Hebrews, they were sore afraid and cried unto the Lord. And then Moses, Exodus 14:11. Oh, I'm getting ahead of myself. Sorry. Actually, no, I was not getting ahead of myself. My apologies, guys. And this Moses says unto them, Exodus 14, or no, they say unto Moses. Sorry, guys. I'm mixing my words here. And so then they say unto Moses, Exodus 14:11, because there were no graves in Egypt, hast thou taken us away to die in the wilderness? Every time I read this verse, I get a sense of sarcasm and attitude from them. What? Just because there was no freaking graves in Egypt, you had to bring us out here to kill us? Way to go, Moses. Classic Moses. Here we go. But there's a hint of sarcasm and attitude behind it. And we'll go to verse 12 next. It had been better for us to serve the Egyptians. And this statement to me is shocking. They would rather go back to slavery than trust God into uncertainty. And it shocked me, not because I can't believe they would do this. It shocked me because this is a normalcy. You know, you'll hear preachers preach about this and like, how can they ever want to go back to how they were comfortable rather than trust God in uncertainty? I don't know, Pastor, you tell me. Is that why as soon as you leave the pulpit, you get in your car and you curse at somebody at the stoplight? Is that why every night you're drinking to the point of intoxication and you don't have a sober mind? Is that why you get up on the pulpit on Sunday, but then Monday, altar boy comes in and yeah, I'm not going to get in that detail. But it's the same pastors that preach on this and say, I can't believe the chosen people would do this. But it's human nature. It is a natural reaction to go back into that bondage. It is a natural reaction to go back to what you know. You look at parents nowadays and look at their childhood, they were abused. A lot of them don't change. They stay in the mindset of being abused and carry it on to their children. And I don't understand why. Me as a father, I want to take the basis of what I had as a childhood, amplify that, and put that into my children. I don't want to set them back. I will say I did not have a terrible childhood. I did not. My parents were great. But why would I want to set my children back? But rather build them up from what I had and amplify it to more, to better. And they do this because it's easy. It's something they know. They were raised in it. It's easier to continue the cycle than to change it. It's easier to go back into slavery than to be uncertainly free of that bondage. So fathers, we see this in our children quite a bit. Your children prefer someone familiar. They prefer what's familiar. When you're walking with your children in public and they meet a stranger, they hide behind your leg because you're familiar, your protection. You're guaranteed not to hurt them, or you're supposed to be. But familiar isn't always good. You know, we talk about addictions, cigarettes, tobacco, nicotine. Many things can be an addiction. Your child's tablet is an addiction. If they're on it more hours of the day than any other time, that's an addiction. If they throw a temper tantrum because they don't get their tablet, that's an addiction. But since they have spent so much time on it, that is now familiar to them. And when you take that away, the surrounding area is no longer familiar to them. Their lifestyle is no longer familiar to them, and they freak out because they're addicted. So addiction is familiar. So children prefer what's familiar, even what's familiar isn't good. So be careful and be mindful of what your children know as familiar. So Moses stands there between fear and faith and says in Exodus 14:13, fear ye not, stand still and see the salvation of the Lord. Now, mind you, the sea has not parted yet. The Red Sea has not parted yet. They have their backs to the Red Sea and are looking at Pharaoh's army charging them. And here's Moses saying, stand still, stay calm, and see the salvation of the Lord. I got this. Let me talk to the big man. And that's faith. declaring trust before evidence. And fathers, we need to be that intercessor. We need to speak peace while going through an uncomfortable situation. We need to speak that peace in a time of fear. So God finally parts the Red Sea. The Israelites walk across dry land, and Pharaoh's army is now under the Red Sea. All right. So after the Red Sea, Moses becomes something new. He becomes a fulfillment of what his preparation was. He wasn't just a deliverer, that was part of it, but he now becomes what he was being prepared for. He is now a shepherd of the people. He is now a leader of the people. Okay? So let's go back to when they asked, who made you in charge? Who made you prince over us? Well, now God has finally said, yeah, I'm making him in charge now. I say it. And he was instructed to lead them to the promised land. They didn't go. And for 40 years, Moses woke up every day in the desert and the wilderness and went, they are going to need something today. And that pretty much sums up the entire story of their time in the desert. I could end that right there, of time in the desert, of just Noah going, Moses, they're gonna need something today. They're gonna need water. They're gonna need food. They're gonna need direction. They're gonna need correction, and they're gonna need hope for whatever reason, as if they haven't seen enough. And every day he must go to God for it. He has to stay consistent with God to fulfill their needs, to fulfill their wants. Exodus 33:13. Show me now thy way, that I may know thee. Fathers, if this isn't the most important concept you need to listen to through this entire podcast, through this entire series, it is this. This needs to be what you consistently pray for. Show me now thy way, that I may know thee. Every day, every hour, every second, you need to be seeking the Lord. I'm not saying pray all day, do nothing, and just sit and pray all the time. No. But you need to constantly pray to God, show me thy way, that I may know thee. Lord, show me so I can build my relationship better with you. Not to make my life easier, but ultimately show me how to lead. Show me thy way so I can show my family thy way. That I can lead my family in the promise that you gave me. Show me so my calling can now be fulfilled with my family. Show me how to lead my children. But then let's fast forward again. Just a couple of days this time. So a couple of days later, Exodus 15:24. And the people murmured against Moses. Here we go. The people murmured against Moses. Let's jump to chapter 16. They complained about food. Chapter 17. They complained about water. Complain, whine. Nothing is good for us. This is really where we notice a pattern with the Israelites. They have a problem. They panic. They complain. Moses prays. God provides. It does this over and over in every situation. And Moses starts fulfilling this middle parent life. This has now become Moses' life of becoming a middle parent, being the intercessor between the children of Israel and God himself. And fathers, this is sometimes something we have to go through. Your children complain, you pray, God provides, repeat. Your children complain, you pray, you provide, repeat. And let's jump a little bit. The golden calf moment. At this moment, Exodus 32:10, let me alone that I may consume them. At this point, God is pissed. God is ready to wipe them out. He's up there going, you know what? I'm not doing this. I delivered you from slavery. I delivered you from torture. I delivered you from all unlawful murder. I delivered you out of the desert. I let you walk across dry land through the Red Sea. I don't know how many of y'all know what's at the bottom of the Red Sea, but it's very freaking wet. So God allowing them to walk on dry land across the Red Sea, giving them food to eat when they complained, giving them water when they complained. And yet they still have the audacity to build a golden calf and an idol and pray to it? Like, do y'all not just remember what I did for you? So God is pissed. He wants to judge him. He wants to wipe him out. He's like, listen, I ain't doing this. Now, let's restart. But Moses, being the intercessor, steps in. Exodus 32:11, and Moses besought the Lord his God. He besought God. He prayed to God. He stood in that gap between God and Israel. And he prayed the promise that God had made of the blessed bloodline, of the promise, the covenant that was already there. And this is the true point of fatherhood that Moses shows for the children of Israel, because he's interceding for the people who messed up. He's interceding for the children that messed up. But Moses hits a breaking point. He does this so many times, one after another after another. We look at Numbers 11:14. I am not able to bear all these people alone. Verse 15, kill me, I pray thee. Listen, fathers, listen to me. Your children will drive you nuts. Okay? You will get overstimulated. You will feel hopeless. All right? Maybe not to the extreme of kill me, I pray thee, but you're going to reach your peak. Walk away, take a breather. But understand, even strong leaders hit limits. And God responds by giving him help. He gives Moses help, okay? And this is the moment that a lot of people overlook. Exodus 18. Moses is judging disputes all day. This was the cause of his breaking points. He was judging disputes all day. He was sitting in his tent, listening to the people gripe, complain, moan, groan, throw little hissy fits over everything from morning to night. This was what he was doing. He wasn't building anything for himself. He was just doing that. And now God sends Moses' father-in-law, and he's watching this. And then he finally says in Exodus 18:17 and 18, the thing that thou doest is not good. What you're doing is not good. All right? That will surely wear away. In other words, you're going to burn out, man. Son-in-law, you are going to burn out if you keep this up. And this is important. God sends Moses help because even Moses needed help. You don't have to carry this alone. So Moses starts appointing leaders. He starts delegating responsibility. He shares the load. And fathers, this is a very key, important lesson for you guys. Carrying everything yourself is not strength. It's unsustainable. This is why earlier I said, be mindful of who you choose as a partner to raise your children with, okay? Also, why are you trying to put everything on yourself? Why are you trying to conquer everything when God has already conquered it? Carrying everything yourself is not strength. You're going to burn yourself out. You know, you look at, say, the guys that work on oil rigs, highly stressful job. You get them in at 18. They worked there for a couple of years. They turn 25. You look at them, they look like they're in their mid 30s or even early 40s because they are burnt out. They have overworked themselves. They are tired. They are exhausted. They're capped. They can't do it anymore. They're burnt out. They're broken. They're hurting every day. So it's okay to feel burnt out and tired. Moses was right there with you. But if you're struggling with something, give it to God. He's already conquered it. All right. And fathers, understand something else. Leadership gets harder. The more you are doing something right in God's word, the harder it is going to be to fight for. All right, even with Moses, we have Korah's rebellion. Korah accused Moses of being prideful, of holding on to the power amongst the Israelites. Even after delegating people, he still had the audacity to say he's being prideful in his power. He rebelled against Moses, tried to start his own faction, and started doing things on his own. But here's the thing, him doing it was not part of God's promise. But also, this hurts Moses. Because if you guys remember, Moses never wanted the leadership role in the first place. He was trying to make every excuse possible not to do it. Who am I? I'm not a good leader. I'm not a good speaker anymore. I heard sheep. That's my resume now. We're past the 10 years of where I can use the Egyptian works on my resume. My resume is I heard sheep, but Moses never wanted leadership in the first place. But Moses responds the only way he knows how. Number 16:4, he fell upon his face and he prays. This is now instinct for him. Not to immediately defend yourself and get upset, not to argue and start a fight, but to pray. In the face of accusations, in the face of turmoil, in the face of people coming against you, fall on your face before God. Don't give your enemies the time of day when God has already defeated them. Why are you going to care what they say when God made that covenant with you, when he gave that calling to you? So fathers, I urge you, when things come up, when things get hard, fall on your face and give it to God. One of the most astonishing moments in scripture happens, this is not so astonishing, after Israel sins again, because they have a nasty habit of just doing it. No rhyme or reason, it's just they do it. And God tells Moses he will judge them. But Moses says this, Exodus 32:32. Yet now, if thou wilt forgive their sins, and if not, blot me, I pray thee, out of thy book. So we see the first instance of something Christ-like. He offers himself, forgive their sins, and if not, blot me, I pray thee, out of thy book. When Jesus came and he was the fulfillment of the law of Moses, this is part of it. Moses offering himself up, but he couldn't because Moses was not perfect. So there'd be absolutely no reason for Moses to go forth to wash the sins of the Israelites. There'd have been no point. But now Jesus comes along and fulfills the law of Moses. And now the sins are washed. It's a crazy connection, right? It's not crazy because, yeah. But a father absorbs the pain to protect his children. A father will go through struggles and lengths to protect his children. A father will do whatever is necessary to protect his children. Guys, one of the great commandments is thou shalt not kill. But protecting my daughters does not fall within do not kill. If you push me to the point where it's in between my daughter's life and yours, I'm choosing my daughters. I will protect them and be mindful of those who want to harm children. This is a big subject right now. But be mindful of what Jesus says about harming children. It is better to tie a millstone around your neck and cast yourself into the sea. If that doesn't put perspective on don't harm children, don't touch children, don't mess with the children, I don't know what does. If Jesus Christ is saying it is better to kill yourself than to harm a child, just saying. But as a father, we are meant to protect our children. And that's exactly what Moses does by interceding for Israel. So after all of this, God instructs Moses to build a tabernacle, a holy place. Why? So God can dwell with them. God gives very specific instructions to Moses, detailed instructions, measurements, colors, materials, placement. Why so specific? Because God was teaching Israel something here. Holiness is intentional. Exodus 25:8. Let them make me a sanctuary that I may dwell amongst them. So this is the heart of God. He wanted to dwell with them. Okay. He wanted to dwell with his children. He wanted to be with his children. So he has to make this tabernacle to be with them, a holy place to be with them. But here's the thing, Moses had to teach them how. He had to teach them how to have that relationship with God. He had to teach them how to pray. He had to teach them how to follow. He had to teach them how to listen. Fathers, this is a key thing. A father's role is to teach his home how to host God's presence, not just know about God, get exposure to knowledge about God, quote scripture left and right, but to teach his home how to host God's presence, how to have God's presence throughout your home, throughout your life, throughout your children, throughout your wife. Every aspect of your life and your home needs to have the presence of God. And that is your role to teach them. So near the end of Moses' life, God tells him something hard. All right. He tells him he won't enter the promised land that was originally shown to Moses, but he will appoint Joshua. In Deuteronomy 31:7, be strong and of good courage. So Moses now has to step down from the fatherly role, the intercessor role, and into the mentorship role. Because now he has to train Joshua to have that same relationship, to have that same intuition, have that same stand-in spirit that he had for the children of Israel and to God. So Moses now has to prepare the next leader because he's just been told he's not going to see the fulfillment of the promise. So he cannot see out the end of the promise. It's going to be somebody else. So now he has to prepare that person for what is to come. Fathers, we don't just lead well, okay? We need to prepare our children to lead as well. We can't just be the leaders that do it for them and just tell them how to do it. We need to prepare them, teach them properly, show them, let them do it. And the last thing, before he dies, Moses blesses the tribes. He wasn't complaining. He wasn't bitter after all the mental and emotional abuse that the Israelites put upon him over all those years. And he wasn't resentful about it either. He just wanted to bless them. Deuteronomy 33:1. This is the blessing wherewith Moses blessed the children of Israel before his death. Even at the end of his own life, he is still fathering the children of Israel, giving them a blessing. Because I'm starting to wrap this up here, all right? Deuteronomy 34:4. I have caused thee to see it with thine eyes, but thou shalt not go over thither. So at this point, God lets Moses see the promise. He lets him see where this is going to end. Just because he's not going to be the one fulfilling it, God still lets him see it. And sometimes that's fatherhood. You know, you might have a calling now, but you're not necessarily the one that needs to fulfill it. And this is where raising your children upright in the ways of the Lord becomes a necessity, because there may be an opportunity that you won't experience in your time on this earth, but it will fall to your children to take over once you are gone. And some of you are thinking, I haven't received a calling like that. There's nothing I need to do. You still need to raise your child up in the ways of the Lord. And that is guaranteed. Whether you have a calling that's going to pass through them or not, it's still guaranteed to protect them and to show them and to lead them. That is your right and that is your role. Deuteronomy 34:10. There arose not a prophet since in Israel like unto Moses, whom the Lord knew face to face. This is a legacy moment. Like, this is pure legacy. Not just miracles, not just leadership, but this is the true definition of what the relationship Moses had with God was. There was no other prophet like unto Moses. There was none whom the Lord knew face to face, had that personal, intimate relationship with God. Purity. You are the God who sees shepherds in the desert. You are the God who speaks from burning bushes. And tonight we come before you not as perfect men, but as fathers who feel a weight of responsibility. Us feel like Moses, me included. Lord, we feel unqualified. We feel overwhelmed. We feel caught in the middle. We can't move. We're stuck between a rock and a hard place. We're caught between provision and pressure, exhaustion and expectation. And Lord, your word says, certainly I will be with thee. Lord, be with us. Be with the father who feels alone in leadership. Be with the father who feels unseen in sacrifice. Be with the father who is tired of complaints, tired of pressure. Show us the courage Moses had when he stood before Pharaoh. Show us the faith he had when he said, stand still. Teach us humility that he had when he fell on his face. And guard us from the anger when he struck the rock. Lord, teach us to intercede when our children are in danger, where our children fail, where our children are hurt. Or teach us to intercede when our home feels chaotic. Lead us to prayer when leadership feels too heavy. Remind us we were never meant to carry it alone. Lord, remind us to give it to you because you have already conquered it. Lord, I charge fathers to walk with you like Moses did. Lord, I charge them not to show performance, not to be distant, not to do it for show, to be lukewarm. But Lord, I charge them to build that intimate relationship with you. And Lord, if the father is going through his desert season, sustain him. If he's going through his leadership season, steady him, build him. And if he's in a breaking season, refine him, rebuild him, make him structurally sound on the rock. If you feel caught in the middle between responsibility and exhaustion, between pressure and prayer, between weakness and calling, you're in great company. We've all been there. Moses lived there, but God still met him there. I charge you, lead anyway, pray anyway, stand anyway. And until next time, stay faithful, stay mindful, stay courageous, and keep reflecting the heart of our Heavenly Father.